3 weeks ago, the odds of a Federal Reserve rate hike in September were sitting around 30%. That's a coin flip nobody was losing sleep over. Then, in a matter of days, those odds more than doubled. Wall Street strategists, who had spent all year saying the Fed was done raising rates, suddenly reversed course. And then, just as fast, something happened on a Friday morning that cut those odds nearly in half again. If you only read the headlines, you'd think the Fed's next move is obvious. It isn't. And the reason it isn't obvious is exactly what makes this story worth understanding, because what's driving this whiplash isn't politics or noise. It's a genuine split inside the Federal Reserve itself, and that split has already started showing up in the price of gold and silver. If you're someone who pays attention to your savings account, your mortgage, your retirement account, or you've watched gold and silver rip higher this year and wondered what's actually behind it, this is the story that explains it. And if you're interested in money, investing, gold, silver, the economy, and protecting your financial future, go ahead and subscribe to Money Insiders. And like this video, we break down the financial stories that matter in simple English, and this one has more moving parts than almost anything the Fed has dealt with in years. Here's the obvious interpretation first, the one most people are running with. Inflation is heating back up because of an energy shock, so the Fed is going to hike rates in September to keep prices under control. That's the headline. But here's where it gets more interesting. The same week that hike odds spiked past 60%, gold and silver were also spiking, and that shouldn't happen. Higher interest rates are usually bad for gold. They make bonds and savings accounts pay more, which makes an asset that pays you nothing, like gold, less attractive by comparison. So why would both things be rising together? That contradiction is the thread we're going to pull on, because the answer says something bigger about what's actually going on inside the American economy right now. Let's start with what actually happened at the Fed. At the end of July, the Federal Open Market Committee, the group of officials who set U.S. interest rates, voted to hold rates steady at a range of 350% to 3,005%. That's the fifth meeting in a row they've chosen not to move. On the surface, that sounds boring, steady as she goes. But look at the vote itself, and the picture changes. It wasn't unanimous. 3 members of the committee voted against the hold. They wanted a rate hike right then in July. A 9-3 vote with that many hawkish dissents is unusual. It's a visible crack in what's supposed to be a unified decision-making body, and it's the kind of detail that gets buried in a headline that just says, Fed holds rates steady. Fed Chair Kevin Warsh has been unusually candid about that crack. He's openly described the internal debate at the Fed as something like a family fight. Real disagreement over how seriously to take the inflation risk versus the risk of slowing the economy down too much. And here's the detail that changes the picture even more. The Fed also stopped giving what's called forward guidance. In plain English, forward guidance is when the Fed tells markets ahead of time roughly what it plans to do next, so investors aren't caught off guard. By pulling that back, the Fed is essentially saying, we don't know yet, and we're not going to pretend we do. For markets that are used to some kind of roadmap, that's unsettling. It's also exactly why prediction markets and Wall Street forecasts have been swinging so wildly. Without a signal from the Fed itself, everyone is left guessing off the raw data, and the raw data has been sending mixed messages. So, what pushed the hike odds up in the first place? 2 words: energy prices. Over the summer, a temporary ceasefire between the US and Iran had actually pushed oil prices down, and that showed up directly in the inflation numbers. June's Consumer Price Index report showed prices falling month over month for the first time in years, with the annual inflation rate cooling to 3.5%. That was good news, and for a moment it looked like the Fed's job was getting easier. But that ceasefire didn't hold. Talks broke down, tensions around the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway that a huge share of the world's oil shipments pass through, flared back up, and oil prices surged more than 20% in a matter of weeks. That single development did more to change the inflation outlook than almost anything else this year, because energy costs ripple into everything: gasoline, shipping, manufacturing, even food, since a large share of the world's fertilizer supply is produced in the Persian Gulf region. When oil spikes, it doesn't just hit the gas pump, it quietly pushes up the cost of nearly everything downstream of it. That's why, by early August, strategists at major banks were revising their forecasts. Where the expectation had been, the Fed stays on hold through the rest of 2026, some of the largest wealth management strategists in the country flipped to saying a September rate hike was now more likely than not, with futures markets pricing in something like a 2 in 3 chance. The reasoning wasn't just about oil, it was also about credibility. When a central bank holds rates steady while inflation risk is visibly rising, investors start to wonder whether the Fed is behind the curve, whether it's reacting to old data instead of getting ahead of a new problem. And when that kind of doubt creeps into markets, a central bank sometimes has an extra incentive to hike anyway, just to prove it's still willing to do the hard thing. That's not a guess. That's a well-documented pattern going back decades, most famously in the late 1970s and early 1980s, when a Fed under Paul Volcker had to hike rates aggressively, partly to rebuild credibility that had been lost. Nobody is saying we're repeating that exact moment, but the mechanism, a central bank hiking partly to prove it means what it says, is not new, and it's worth understanding because it's part of what strategists were pricing in when they raised their hike odds. Now here's where the story takes its first real turn, the one that should make you pause. If the Fed really is leaning toward a hike because of inflation risk, why were gold and silver rallying at the very same time? Historically, that relationship runs the other way. When real yields go up, and real yields simply mean the interest rate you earn after subtracting inflation, gold tends to struggle because investors can get a decent, safe return elsewhere, and gold pays no interest at all, so a rising chance of a hike should, in theory, be a headwind for gold. Instead, gold pushed up toward record territory, trading above $4,300 an ounce, and silver did something even more dramatic. It more than doubled in price over the course of the year, at one point climbing past $65 an ounce and touching its highest level in weeks. There's another side to this that often gets overlooked, and it's the key to resolving that contradiction. Gold isn't just reacting to interest rates, it's reacting to uncertainty itself. And this year has had no shortage of it. A shooting war risk around one of the world's most important oil choke points. A Fed that just told markets it's not going to give clear guidance anymore. Internal disagreement at the top of the world's most powerful central bank. All of that adds up to exactly the environment where investors, central banks, and everyday savers reach for gold. Not because they expect a specific rate decision, but because they're hedging against not knowing what happens next. Gold has historically played that role during periods of high uncertainty, even when the interest rate math alone would suggest otherwise. Silver's story has an extra layer that gold doesn't. Unlike gold, which is almost purely a monetary and safe haven asset, silver is also a heavily used industrial metal. It's essential in solar panels, electric vehicles, and electrical grid infrastructure. And the data here is striking. Chinese imports of silver-bearing ore surged more than 62% year over year in a single month, tied to the country's expanding solar and grid production. So silver's rally isn't just a bet on economic uncertainty. It's also being pulled higher by genuine industrial demand that has nothing to do with the Fed at all. That's an overlooked detail that explains why silver has actually outpaced gold's gains this year, compressing what's called the gold-silver ratio, a simple measure of how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold. When that ratio shrinks, it usually means silver is catching up to or outrunning gold, and that's exactly what's been happening. But this is where the story gets more interesting, because just when the hike narrative looked settled, the data flipped again. In early August, the government released its jobs report for July, and it was not what forecasters expected. Economists had penciled in roughly 80,000 new jobs. Instead, the U.S. economy lost 23,000 jobs, an outright decline, the kind of number that doesn't show up often outside of a genuine slowdown. To make it worse, the prior month's job gains were revised sharply lower too, meaning the labor market had already been quietly weakening before anyone noticed. Now, here's a detail that a lot of casual coverage glossed over. The unemployment rate actually ticked down slightly to 4.1%. On its own, that sounds like good news. But look closer, and the real story shows up in a different number. The labor force participation rate, which measures how many working-age people are actually employed or actively looking for work, fell to its lowest level in more than 5 years. In plain terms, unemployment didn't go down because more people found jobs. It went down partly because fewer people were counted as looking for work at all. That's not the same thing as a healthy labor market, and traders reading the report understood the difference immediately. That single report reshaped the entire rate debate within 24 hours. Markets that had been pricing in something close to a 2 in 3 chance of a September hike a week earlier suddenly repriced down to somewhere closer to 44%. The dollar dropped to a 2-week low. Traders who had bet on the Fed needing to hike to fight inflation were suddenly forced to consider the opposite risk, that the Fed might need to stay cautious or even ease up because the labor market is showing real cracks. And that's the reality check worth sitting with. 2 weeks before this video, most of the financial media was confidently telling you a hike was likely. The data underneath that confidence changed dramatically in a matter of days. If there's one lesson buried in this whole sequence, it's that these probabilities are not predictions. They're a snapshot of what traders believe right now based on the latest data, and that snapshot can and does change fast. So what is the Fed actually staring at right now? Two forces pulling in opposite directions at the same time. On one side, an energy shock tied to Middle East tensions that's pushing inflation risk higher, the kind of pressure that normally argues for higher rates. On the other side, a labor market that just posted its first outright job loss in months with a shrinking workforce hiding underneath a falling unemployment number. the kind of weakness that normally argues for holding steady or even cutting. That combination has a name in economics. It's the setup that can lead towards something like stagflation, a period where growth slows down at the same time prices are rising. It's not a guarantee that's where we're headed. Plenty of periods with mixed signals resolve without turning into anything close to the stagflation of the 1970s. But it's exactly the kind of environment where a central bank's job gets genuinely difficult because there's no clean answer. Hike, and you risk choking off an already weakening job market. Hold or cut, and you risk letting an oil-driven inflation spike take root. That tension is precisely what Chair Warsh was describing as a fight within the Fed itself, because there isn't a consensus answer sitting on the table. Now, here's a detail that deserves a closer look, because it lands right around when many of you will be watching this. Tomorrow morning, the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases the Consumer Price Index for July, the actual inflation report that will tell us whether the oil-driven pressure showed up in real prices yet. Economists are forecasting a modest 0.1% increase from June to July, with the annual rate ticking up slightly to around 3.4%, and core inflation, which strips out volatile food and energy prices to show the underlying trend, expected to rise a bit faster. Remember, June's report looked unusually cool, with prices actually falling for the month, but that was heavily influenced by the temporary ceasefire that briefly pushed oil prices down. Since that ceasefire collapsed, and oil has climbed more than 20% since, most forecasters don't expect July's report to repeat that pleasant surprise. If the number comes in hot, it could reignite hike odds almost overnight. If it comes in soft, it could reinforce the case for the Fed staying patient. Either way, this single data release, arriving right as this video goes out, may end up mattering more to gold, silver, and your own financial plans than anything the Fed itself has said all summer. So, what does any of this actually mean for someone watching this video who isn't a professional trader? Start with borrowing costs. If the Fed does hike in September, expect variable rate debt, credit cards, home equity lines, adjustable rate mortgages to get modestly more expensive, and new fixed mortgage rates could tick up too, since long-term borrowing costs often move ahead of the Fed's own decision as markets price and expectations. If the Fed holds or leans toward easing instead, the opposite pressure applies, and borrowing could get marginally cheaper over time. For savers, a hike is actually good news in one narrow sense. Savings accounts, CDs, and money market funds tend to pay a bit more when the Fed's rate is higher, but that has to be weighed against what's driving the hike in the first place. If it's inflation from higher energy costs, then even a better savings rate might not be keeping pace with what things actually cost at the grocery store and the gas station. For anyone with a retirement account, this tug-of-war between inflation risk and labor market weakness is exactly the kind of uncertainty that shows up as volatility in stocks, bonds, and precious metals alike, which is why so many investors have been rotating some portion of their portfolios toward gold and silver this year as a way to diversify against that uncertainty, rather than trying to guess the Fed's next move directly. That brings us back to the metals themselves, because this is really the heart of the title's question. As of this week, gold is trading in the neighborhood of $4,300 to $4,400 an ounce, and silver is trading somewhere around $64 to $66 an ounce, with silver up well over 100% for the year, a genuinely historic run. Some analysts believe both metals could push toward fresh highs in the weeks ahead if uncertainty around the Fed and the Middle East continues. That's a reasonable scenario given the current backdrop, but it is not a guarantee, and anyone telling you gold and silver only go up in a straight line isn't being honest with you. Precious metals can and do pull back sharply, sometimes quickly, especially if a strong CPI report locks in a September hike, and the dollar strengthens as a result. Historically, a genuinely hawkish, credibility-restoring Fed move has been able to cool gold rallies, at least temporarily, because it makes competing assets like short-term bonds more attractive. On the other hand, if the labor market keeps softening and the Fed leans dovish instead, some analysts expect that combination of falling rates and continued geopolitical uncertainty could keep supporting both metals. Silver adds one more variable neither scenario fully controls. As long as global solar and grid build-out keeps accelerating, industrial demand could continue providing a floor under silver prices, somewhat independent of what the Fed decides. It's worth zooming out for a second on the bigger historical picture too, because it puts today's prices in perspective without overselling them. Gold set its prior all-time high back in the spring of 2025, and it has now moved well beyond that level. Looking further back, over the roughly 50 years since the US left the gold standard, stocks have actually delivered higher average annual returns than gold, somewhere around 10.7% a year for stocks versus roughly 7.9% a year for gold, according to long-run historical data. That doesn't make gold a bad asset. It makes gold a different kind of asset. It has tended to shine specifically during periods like this one. High uncertainty, credibility questions around central banks, geopolitical shocks, rather than as a steady long-term growth engine the way equities have been. Understanding that distinction matters more than chasing whatever asset had the best headline last week. So let's bring this all the way back to the question the title raised. Are September rate hike odds really rising, and what does that mean for gold and silver? The honest answer, based on everything the data actually shows right now, is that the odds have been rising and falling together with the news, not moving in one clean direction. They spiked on an oil shock and a Fed credibility question, then dropped hard on a genuinely weak jobs report. And they're likely to move again tomorrow morning once the July CPI numbers land. What's driving gold and silver isn't a simple bet on whether the Fed hikes or holds. It's the accumulation of uncertainty itself, an energy conflict with no clear resolution, a central bank that has openly admitted internal disagreement and stopped giving forward guidance, and a labor market sending signals that don't line up neatly with the headline unemployment rate. That combination is exactly the environment in which investors have historically turned toward precious metals, not as a guaranteed win, but as a hedge against not knowing what comes next. What you can reasonably take from this isn't a prediction, it's a mental model. Watch the data, not the headline of the day. A single jobs report or a single inflation print can flip the entire rate hike narrative within 24 hours, and it has twice in the span of about 2 weeks. When you see gold or silver make a big move, ask what specific piece of evidence caused it, rather than assuming the obvious story is the whole story. And remember that the Fed itself, by its own chair's admission, is genuinely uncertain about its next move, which means anyone claiming total certainty about September in either direction is telling you more than the data actually supports. What remains uncertain is exactly what the Fed will do. What's certain is that the forces pulling on that decision, energy prices, labor market health, and the Fed's own credibility, are also the forces that have been pulling gold and silver higher all year, and they're not going away after one meeting in September, no matter which way that meeting goes. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insiders and like this video. More powerful financial insights are coming next. This video is AI generated.